Welcome everyone to this Sunday's edition of Road to Reason, A Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century, here Sunday, November 3rd. I am your host, Larry Mendoza.
And I'm Rick Wingrove.
And we have a great show today. We have a couple of really awesome guests, and we're very lucky to have them. We're going to have, on the first half of our show, is Mätthew Chapman. He's a producer, director, screenwriter, and great-great-grandson of Charles Darwin himself. And then on the second half of the show, we're going to have Grand Unified hip-hop artist Tombstone, who will be joining us live here on the show. Before we begin, though, a couple of things. I just want to remind all our viewers again to help us out here at the show. You can do it in a different couple of ways. The first is to obviously send us some money. We'd like the show to be, make it a little better graphics, get people in the show. If you look in the bottom third right there, you can see where you can send your check or money order to. And we'd be happy to make the show as best as we can make it. The other way you can help us out is to, if you're local, to come by Fairfax County Public Access TV station and help us out with the show. We need people in the booth. We have training classes. It's a state-of-the-art facilities here. If you want to learn about TV production and how to work sound and all kinds of things, you should come by and help us out. We need some more hosts, female hosts preferably.
Especially another female host.
Yes, we have one. We would like, or we have a couple. I think we'd like more to be regular rotation on a show, so it's not the same faces. We want this to be a community, show. So we want your help. All right. So before we get started now, some announcements.
Just a couple of local things. This coming Wednesday, the 6th, at the Supreme Court, on the steps of the Supreme Court, we will be rallying regarding the Greece, New York case. It has to do with prayer at public meetings. And so we'll be down there. A lot of the local organizations and national organizations will be there. There'll be a lot of press. And so it'll be a good time. Also, we want to let everybody know that our 8th or 9th annual Festivus party is coming up. You can find out details. It'll be posted up tomorrow on Beltway Atheists and Nova Atheist meetup sites. So check that out. And to find out any other local things that are going on in the area, get in touch with Woody Lipinski, who puts out a weekly compendium, I guess, of all the events going on in the area. It's a helpful guide. And
for those of you who don't know, meetup.com, if you go to meetup.com and then search Nova Atheists or Beltway Atheists, Inc., that's how you can find us, and we do a lot of other different events.
Also, like us here at Road to Reason, like us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter and YouTube, and we're streaming live on Ustream right now. So,
all right, well, let's get started. Our first guest, Mätthew, can you hear us? Mätthew Chapman.
I can hear you, yeah.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for coming on the show. It's a great pleasure. For everybody out there who don't know Mätthew Chapman, he's a producer, director, screenwriter. He's done a number of movies, the latest of which is The Ledge, and we do have a clip of that which we'll show you here in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and let Mätthew kind of talk a little bit about himself. So Mätthew, first of all, so you're a producer, director, and screenwriter. Tell us some of the movies you've done and some of the things and how you got into this business.
Well, I got into this business very young as a film editor. And then I'd always been writing, really just to kind of keep myself sane. Mm-hmm. And I decided that if you could edit a film and you could write one, directing was really just the bit in the middle, which I still think is true in a way. And so then I made a film when I was very young, like 25 or something, and I've been writing and directing ever since. I get sort of antsy, and so I would write for a few years and then direct something and then think, no, I'd like to write. And then sort of recently I got involved in science debate, trying to get the presidential candidates to hold a debate on science as opposed to faith. And so I started a whole organization with that practically bankrupted me. And now I'm back to filmmaking, and this is the film If I can see it. The ledge. There it is.
Yes.
Right.
Hey!
There you go. And we're going to show a clip of that here in a minute. But
Yeah.
you mentioned this organization. I was going to ask you about that and whether it's still going on or not, or is it still?
And this was to get presidential candidates to debate science topics specifically.
Yeah. And I mean, it was during the run-up to the 2008 election. I was watching all those debates, and a lot of them, were questions about faith and values, and some of them are actually sort of devoted to faith. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, why isn't the one devoted to reason? And the best sort of expression of reason is science. And it seemed to me that the really big issues, the future of the planet, really, were dependent on science, not on faith. And yet no one was talking about it. I mean, in that election, I think the subject of climate change in all of the debates came up 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was crazy. And so I put together this organization with a lot of help from friends. There was a guy, I don't know if you know Austin Dacey.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's a sort of a well-known atheist and a philosopher. And he kind of helped me at first. And then a guy called Sean Otto jumped in, who's a fellow screenwriter. Mm-hmm. And he really kind of took the organization to the next level. Very, very hard-working, very brilliant guy. And we almost, in 2008, we almost got the debate. We actually were negotiating with the candidates. Mm-hmm. And we had the Franklin Museum in Philadelphia, mm-hmm. and we had Nova and Now from PBS. Great. And they were sort of going to agree to it. There were 3 of them in the race then. There was Clinton, Obama, and McCain. Mm-hmm. And then they decided to do a debate at Messiah College on faith and values. So we got stiffed. But they did then we developed like 14 questions that we insisted they answer. Mm-hmm. And they did answer them, questions about science that had been sort of synthesized by our membership, which was quite huge by this one.
You didn't mention Palin. Did she respond to the questions?
No, she didn't. No, she was not really of much interest to us.
I can sort of see why. But
let me ask you something, Mätthew. You're very famous in the atheist community, of course, for your movies, but also because you're the great-great-grandson of Charles Darwin, and we are a little bit irrationally exuberant about that. That's just a fun thing for us to have somebody alive that's connected. But it's not the only thing you do, and you've done a lot of great movies. I saw on your Wikipedia page earlier something I did not know, and that was that you did the screenplay for Runaway Jury, which is one of my favorite movies. It is a truly great movie.
Thank you. Yeah, I was the one who changed. It was originally the John Grisham book. Was a book about tobacco, and somebody suing a tobacco company. And what was that film? The Insider came out. And so they said, what are we going to do? They paid him $10 million for his book, and they didn't want to throw it away. So they gave it to me to look at, and I said, why don't we make it guns and treat guns like a sort of a public health hazard? Yeah. And that's really what the essence of the movie is about, with all of the entertainment stuff thrown in too.
Yeah, that's very, as I said, you've done a lot of movies, and Ledge being the latest one.
Actually, I have another movie coming out, not that I directed, but that I wrote.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. What's cooking in the pot right now for you?
Well, I have a movie opening in New York on Friday, a week from a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And it's a film about, I wrote, but it's directed by a Brazilian director called Bruno Barreto. But it's opening at the Angelica on Friday, and it's about a poet, Elizabeth Bishop, a lesbian poet, a love affair with a Brazilian female architect. And it's sort of very much in line with my sort of interest in human rights, which I consider being gay and being treated well if you are gay. I consider it a basic human right.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So it's a pleasure to write.
Yeah.
That's good. So that's opening up on Friday. That's what's the name of the movie?
It's called Reaching for the Moon.
Reaching for the Moon.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep an eye out on that.
Now, I was fortunate enough to be in Iowa in 2010 when you premiered The Ledge.
Oh, that was a great time.
That was. I met you there. You met 1,000 people there. I was among them. and enjoyed talking to you for a few minutes. And then we were treated, that was the world premiere, as I recall, for your movie.
It was. I kind of snuck it by.
Yeah.
I snuck it by the distributors, and yeah, it was.
It was great fun. It was well received. And, you know, it begs the question, could you introduce me to Liv Tyler? Is she
Sure.
seeing anybody?
I
Liv
won't just introduce you. I'll send her down there in a
Well, speaking of Hollywood stars, which I'm sure you've met quite a number of them, one of the questions I had for you is, so clearly, you know, the theme of like The Ledge is clearly has an atheist versus fundamentalist Christianity kind of tint to it. But how is reason, skepticism, atheism received in the Hollywood community? Because I understand that there's also a lot of like Scientology. We did a show on Scientology actually last Sunday about that. So how does that play out in Hollywood? I mean, do you find most actors and other directors fairly atheistic, skeptical, or how does that?
I find most actors to be, generally speaking, somewhat superstitious. And with a sort of exception of, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, I would say most of them are very frightened of expressing an atheist viewpoint, even if they have it. I mean, Hollywood is very Jewish, and a lot of very serious, sort of reverent Jews in Hollywood. A lot of sort of New Age stuff. As you know, of course, a lot of movies, to me, horror movies are, in a sense, religious movies because they're positing the idea of a sort of afterlife and spiritual stuff, even though it's kind of weird stuff. And so I find, and I think there's also, movies is kind of a gambler's game, although people would like to pretend that it's not and that you can make things work through, having a committee telling a screenwriter like me what to do. But it's really a gamble, and so I think in all gambling enterprises you have a lot of superstition. And I had a very, 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 very hard time getting The Ledge set up. I had a very, very hard time getting some of the actors to support it as much as I think they wanted to, because they didn't want to offend their fans.
I see. Yeah, that's something that can definitely. I can imagine how difficult that would be because they got to appease a lot of different people, not just atheists. And this is a very,
it is a touchy subject, and we are seeing it more. I was watching a little indie movie yesterday called Free Samples, where an aging star asked a young woman if she believed in God, and she just simply said, "Well, no." Like, why would I, basically? But another question for you about one of the people on the film, Patrick Wilson. Is he really that creepy in person?
No, he is actually the sweetest guy and very, very. I know it's not fair to say this because it's, everybody has a different challenge, a different time, and a different role. I would say certainly, and I've worked with Helen Mirren, and I've written for all kinds of actors, Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman and Rachel Weisz, and I would say of all the actors I've been in contact with, he might be the best actor I've ever worked with.
Wow.
He's really astonishing. He has a kind of I don't think he's even begun as an actor in terms of the roles he's going to tackle eventually.
Yeah, I've seen him play one sympathetic role, and he was really good. I can't remember something recently, but other than that, he generally plays kind of a creepy guy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that makes him a good actor.
Yeah,
right?
it does. Yeah.
So why don't we go ahead and show a clip of your movie, The Ledge. There's about a 2-minute clip. Let's go ahead and see if we can get that rolled.
Excellent.
Look at the world that he created. All the beauty.
I think we're having issues with
Wars
this.
and plagues and genocides and earthquakes and tidal waves. And then, after all that suffering, what does your God do next? He sends most of us to hell.
Well, not if you've been born again.
Right, the old baptismal jacuzzi.
You have to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. That is your only entrance requirement.
Okay, so the Hebes, the Hindus, the Muslims, the atheists, the Buddhists, all damned, right?
They have to accept Jesus Christ.
And the Catholics, because they're not born again, right?
Right.
And face it, man, it's kinda crazy.
No, it's not crazy. God gives us free will for that purpose. Otherwise, we would just be puppets. Life would be meaningless. That's the beauty of eternal salvation. You see, anyone can go to heaven or hell because anyone can be saved. It's your choice.
Unless you're a kid in China who gets hit by a bus and never even heard of this getting saved deal. Where's his choice?
Well, that's why it's so important to spread the gospel, try and save people.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I just find this kind of fundamentalism incredible. I mean, all of you, totally convinced you know exactly who God is and exactly how he wants to be worshipped. And all without a lick of evidence he even exists. No wonder there's so many holy wars. Without evidence, how else would you win this argument except by killing each other?
See, I see evidence in all kinds of things.
So do they. And sooner or later, one of these guys who hears God in his head is gonna get a hold of weapons of mass destruction. And then when it's way too late, we're finally gonna ask ourselves why, after thousands of years of bloodshed, didn't we at least try to do away with this insane concept of faith before it killed us?
You know, maybe I'm just coming at this from a different angle.
And what angle would that be?
All right. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed that clip, and we urge you to go and check out the movie The Ledge, produced and written and directed by Mätthew Chapman, and check it out.
Yeah.
And just real quick, I want to move on to talking about some of the, you're also an author, so you wrote a couple of books, and I want to go ahead and, but before we do that, I want to ask you, so, you know, clearly this was a very atheistic themed movie, right? And you were trying to, I guess, portray, and it entangles also like a love triangle. There's a lot of different components to this movie. Can you just give us I know we saw the clip, but can you speak a little bit more about the content of the movie and what you were trying to portray?
Well, I mean, the story, simply told, is of an atheist, Charlie Hunnam, who falls in love with the wife of a fundamentalist, this heavy-duty fundamentalist. They have an affair, and the fundamentalist then puts Hunnam's lack of faith to the test. Will he be able to sacrifice himself if he has no faith in an afterlife? Do people do good things without the reward of heaven, I suppose? But my idea was, I've written a number of thrillers, and my idea was to try and make a low-budget thriller with some very classic ingredients of a sort of a ticking clock and, death approaching and all of these classic Hollywood elements. And inside of that would be the atheist message. I think I actually screwed up when I released it in America by talking too much about atheism, because the really interesting part about the movie, for me, in terms of its release, was that it had been pre-sold to get foreign sales by the producer to all kinds of countries, including the Middle East and Turkey and Pakistan and India and all kinds of. It was just simply sold as a thriller, and it was sold as a thriller to Indonesia. So it went to these countries as a thriller, but with this sort of message in the middle of it. And it played like in Indonesia for, I don't know, like 8 or 9 weeks. And it was during the period when, what's he called? Alex Arn. Do you know who I'm talking about? He was an Indonesian atheist who had said he was an atheist on Facebook, and they'd send him to prison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Young guy.
Right.
So my movie was playing during that period. I mean, a clearly, graphically anti-God kind of a movie.
Yeah,
and nobody had noticed it. But it became part of that. And then it became, the same thing happened in Turkey.
Right.
When Fazil Say was being sort of pursued, the composer, for being an atheist. And so it was like a sort of a Trojan horse of a movie.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this was literally the best part of the movie for me. Then it got smuggled over the border from Turkey into Iran.
Oh, wow.
And I began to get like strange emails from Tehran. People saying, we just screened your movie in a basement in Tehran. there's 20 of us here. We really love it. Thank you for making this movie. Wow, we envy you being in America, being able to do things like this. And that was like this. I felt like I totally succeeded. Of course, I was getting no money from this basement in Tehran, but it didn't matter to me at all. It was great. And I still keep in touch with people from Iran, from Turkey, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan even. They've been seen there.
Well, I can see why you would get some pushback on that, because you took on the subject head on.
Yeah.
And that was a pivotal scene. I don't know if you could see or hear the scene that we were doing, but it was the scene where Patrick Wilson was playing the guitar and talking to Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah.
Pretty pivotal scene, and you just don't see that in Hollywood movies every day.
No, you don't. And I mean, for us kind of atheists who've been atheists for a while, all of the arguments are very familiar. But if you're 16, 17, 18 years old in Tehran or Turkey or Pakistan, these are completely original arguments and revelatory to people like that. So that was where the movie succeeded for me, really was in the international community.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Let's talk about
that's
the
wonderful.
books.
Yeah, let's and you have so that's wonderful. That's great. You also have 2 books out, right? You have one called 40 Days and 40 Nights. It was about the trial. Is it Kitzmiller versus Dover in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
A book about that. We got a screenshot of that. I haven't read it, but I heard very good reviews about it. Did you have fun writing that? Were you actually at Dover at the time?
Oh yeah. I stayed down there. It was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where the trial took place. But I went to Dover.
Were they aware of who you were when you were there, your relationship to Charles Darwin?
Yes, it became known. And I was sort of also at the same time making a documentary, or trying to, which I never succeeded in pulling it off. And so I would go around to various places and interview people. And it was the first time, I'd spent a lot of time in the South over the years. And in Pennsylvania was the most aggressively unpleasant preachers I think around. One of them said just quite flat out, said, well, as Darwin's great-great-grandson, you are the devil's. We believe that Darwin is the devil.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was so outrageous. I was kind of laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. And the guy
Right. And I do gotta say, there's a striking similarity between you and your great-great-grandfather. I mean, we were thinking about, editing your picture and putting a little beard, because I think you would fit that perfectly. But the other book you have is Trials of the Monkey, and you call it an accidental memoir. Can you talk a little bit about that?
This is the thing. Apart from The Ledge, I would say this is the thing that I'm most proud of doing. It's a strange book. It's really a road trip I took to Tennessee, to the town where the Scopes monkey trial took place.
Right.
And it was intended really just to be a trip. It was the joke of it, if you like, was a Darwin descendant descending below the Bible Belt. To see if this town had evolved in the 80 years since the trial, which, by the way, it certainly had not. But along the way, I began to actually sort of think about my own childhood, which was very strange. And my mother, who was the Darwin descendant, was an alcoholic. She was a lovely woman, but she was an alcoholic. And I think that the pressure to succeed academically and to being a closer descendant of a man like Darwin was very hard on that generation. Not so hard on me. I regard it as kind of something of a joke. But so anyway, I began to sort of reflect on my childhood and how there's sort of an element of it, of how I came to be an atheist, with a sort of very strong sense of being an atheist. And I'm very fond of it. It's about this little town in Tennessee, which I became very fond of. Dayton, Tennessee.
That's good. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to reading both of those books. I have about a list of about 50 books that I have to read, and I'm trying to get to yours as soon as possible. But
well, you don't need to read it. Just buy it.
Just buy it. Okay. Anyway, so that's we only have a few seconds left before we have to go to our second guest. But we do want to thank you for being on the show. I want our viewers to check out, Mätthew Chapman .us, I think .us, your website. Check out the movie The Ledge and read and buy his
and Runaway
books.
Jury too.
Runaway Jury, some of his others.
Is a great one.
And also, I'm on Facebook, and The Ledge has a Facebook page too.
Good.
So those are other good ways to stay in touch.
Good, wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
And I got to say one last thing. You've clearly accomplished much more than your accidental lineage. But if I were Charles Darwin's great-great-grandson, that would be the first line in my resume forever. So,
Well, it depends on the occasion.
I suppose
Right,
it does.
right.
Thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank you
Matthew.
for having me.
All right,
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
When I was younger, I didn't want to admit I had a serious disease. Because of my diabetes, I lost the sight in my left eye. Misconceptions continue to surround this monster public health issue. But the simple truth is, diabetes can often be prevented and complications avoided. You're not alone. Understand the realities of diabetes and know that you can manage it and lead a full, active life.
There's an alarming trend in the world today. Everywhere you go, people are saying that cinema is dead. But cinema is not dead. My name is Count Simon Gauntley, and on my television program, Count Gauntley's Horrors from the Public Domain, I make it my mission to resurrect forgotten film classics. I promise to dredge the sewers and ford the stagnant streams of film history to ensure that no film is truly lost to the ages. Count Gauntley and FPA, keeping cinema alive! Alive! Alive!
Well, even though Joseph's been gone 18 months, we've made the decision to keep all his things as they were when he was here last. I finally just packed his toothbrush away like 6 months ago. It had been sitting on the counter in the bathroom. And I was cleaning the bathroom one day and I just thought, okay, it's time to put the toothbrush in the medicine cabinet.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
All right, welcome back to Road to Reason. Our first guest was Mätthew Chapman. Wonderful interview. I hope you guys caught that. And now our second guest is we have a hip-hop artist. I know we had one last week. We're trying to get more music into the show. So this week we have a hip-hop artist by the name of Tombstone the Dead Man. He's part of the Grand Unified family of artists, and he's here joining us live in the studio, and in a few we'll show you his latest video. But let's go ahead and get started with, so what's your background? What's your story?
Okay, my story is probably the same story as most hip-hop artists. Mm-hmm. I come from the inner city, Baltimore, Maryland. When I was growing up, I liked music. Usually it was mostly rock or something. I was into that, which was strange being from the neighborhood I was from. I'd be on my front porch blasting Leonard Skinner on a boombox. Right. But a couple of friends of mine, they got into rap real heavy. Mm-hmm. And they used to stand out there on the street corner and do their little rhymes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they used to ridicule me because they said, well, Landon, you couldn't do this. And I was like, what's the deal? You just putting words together that rhymes. So I finally had enough of their nonsense and their ridicule. So I went home and I wrote a couple of lines down. So I said, the next time they go out there and start doing their little rhymes, I'm going to surprise them with this. And sure enough, the next day, they were out there doing their little rhymes and going back and forth battling each other. I jumped in and hit like maybe 8 lines. And I caught them off guard, and I was like, yeah, but I got a lot of like respect for that, props for that. And I actually liked the feeling of that I just jumped in and did that, and they liked it, so I kept doing it.
Sure, yeah.
And that's pretty much how I really started rhyming.
Wow, interesting. So you went from listening to Leonard Skinner to, and I bet you they couldn't put together a Leonard Skinner type song now, could they?
That's inner city Baltimore.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now you're living a little closer to D.C.
Yeah, I live in Laurel, Maryland now. I like it a lot better. Don't get me wrong, I love my hometown. A lot of problems there.
Yeah.
I didn't really realize how much the quiet was soothing and helpful to my creative process.
Yeah.
But it is.
A lot of good food in that town, though.
Yes.
I love Baltimore. I love going out there. I love hanging out. We were talking earlier with Mätthew about his movie going to Turkey. I actually had some Turkish friends, and one of them loved going to Baltimore, so I used to go with him all the time and hang out there. So it's a great city.
It is.
I know it's got problems, like every inner city.
Yeah.
I mean, there's problems everywhere, but there's also good sides.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. So you're an atheist.
Yes.
Were you always an atheist? Were you
No.
raised? Okay, so what's your story about that?
I was, born and raised religious, again, like most people in this country. Pentecostal.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and I came from, like I said, fairly religious family. Some family members were a bit more religious than others, but we went to church every Sunday and on Easter and all that other stuff. We did that, and I always had questions when I was younger. I always had questions. The thing about it was, certain questions you weren't really allowed to ask without, getting shushed, or you'd see a room full of adults all of a sudden, like, God might hear you, that type of thing. So certain questions I tabled and kept to myself. But the older I got, the more things just stopped making sense to me. But I didn't attribute it to there not being a God. I contributed to I was in the wrong religion.
Right.
So when I got a certain age, I converted over to Islam. And I practiced Islam. Yeah, I practiced Islam for probably 7 years.
So you're two kinds of apostates.
So were you the Farrakhan Islam, or were you the?
No, I was the traditional. I mean, I started out studying what they had to offer.
Okay, sure.
Because that was the first version of it that was presented to me. But then after that, I went into. I used to wear the full long jalabiya.
Oh, wow.
I had the beard, all of that.
Wow.
And the part that kind of got me away from that. The particular set that I was with, they used to always tell us, don't believe anything, question.
Question, right.
If you don't know the author, you don't know what you're reading. They used to tell us all of this stuff. Unfortunately, it kind of turned around on me.
As it usually does.
Get religious people asking questions, and sometimes it will blow
not really
up.
a good idea, man.
Well, a little while back, we had Catherine Dunphy on our show, who is the executive director for the Clergy Project, and we were talking to her about her story, and she was actually in the seminary, and she was studying to become I guess a nun, and she wanted to be in the convent first, but the nuns were the ones that told her to go and actually learn about it first, just to make sure that's what she wanted to do. And ironically enough, she went to learn about it, got her master's degree, and then decided, okay, that's enough. I guess that's the same kind of logic. Once you start applying critical thinking to religion, you start to
You start plucking on that thread, and pretty soon the whole damn sleeve comes off.
That's pretty much what it was. And it was a case of the more I started asking questions, the more estranged I would get from the rest of the people that's in the group.
Right.
And I got to a point where I was basically thinking to myself, you know what, I'm going to start demanding the exact same type of evidence for this that I demand for everything else.
Right.
I'm no longer going to give the preacher or the imam the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly.
And that's pretty much what, it took me from a point from me saying, okay, I don't know anything.
Right.
Now prove it to me.
Now prove it to me.
And after that, you're headed out the door.
That's
how that works.
So you started thinking about these things, and it led you to a road of atheism. At what point did you decide to start rapping about atheism and actually using music as a means to maybe reach out? Because I think music is a wonderful tool to reach out, especially to the younger generation.
Absolutely.
About skepticism, reason, and
absolutely.
So at what point did you decide to do that?
Okay, well, I started a YouTube channel called Rational Warrior.
Okay.
And I was doing okay. I had maybe a couple of hundred subscribers, and they used to do a thing on there where one YouTuber would tag another YouTuber with a certain kind of video they wanted you to make. They would challenge you to make. And the one in particular that challenged me was to show any kind of talent or skill that you have in the video. So I wrote, this is my first atheist-themed rap. I wrote, because since I used my channel to talk about that stuff, I wrote an atheist-themed rap, and before I knew it, people liked it. So they start spreading around, and I started doing more, and they got spread around a little bit more, and eventually, the song I did called Poison, off of my first album, Rise of the Infidel, it got into the hands of Matt Dillhunty. And they played it on the show one day as an introduction.
The Atheist Experience,
Atheist Experience.
Right. Yeah.
And it got me a whole lot of subscribers and a whole bunch of attention.
Yeah,
and one thing leads to another, and I wound up doing a Reason rally, and before you knew it, I had a nice little audience that was listening. I had a platform now.
Right.
And completely by accident, but things happen.
That's how a lot of that stuff happens.
Yeah.
The Atheist Experience, another public access TV show out in Texas, I believe, right?
Yeah, right out of Austin. Yeah.
He's been around for a while. He's really good at what he does. So I'm sure that kind of spearheaded. Got you a little bit of notoriety.
I was pumped.
I was pumped. Well, then maybe you can, at some point do a little ditty for us.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
We have a video coming up.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and well, first before we show the video, so what's you have 4 albums?
I have 3. I have 2 albums and 1 EP. The recent one is an album. It's called Entropic Man.
Entropic Man.
Yeah.
And this is the video we're going to show us from that album.
Yes.
What's the name of the song?
Manifesto.
Manifesto. So can we roll that clip, please?
Should I really allow you to live inside denial and never criticize all of the bull in the Bible, or say that the Quran is not even special or vital, cause both of them are the same except for a different title. They're legendary fables mixed with extraordinary myths, which I don't have a problem with until you assert that they exist. See, I question their veracity and point out their hypocrisy. I don't like my intelligence insulted while people lie to me. I figured it's the same with you, but now I know that isn't true. Apparently us humans take pleasure in being lied to, and those few that value a truthful and honest view get ostracized by the masses and told that it isn't cool. So I'll probably be infamous for even going into this. They'll say I'm being impudent and angered by my insolence. How dare I ask for evidence and expect to receive it? Why can't it be like all the rest? Just shut up and believe it. Yeah, their arguments are specious, quiet atheists say, but don't explore it, just ignore it. Why do you want to make waves? Why would you want to name names? You're gonna hurt a lot of feelings and start burning a lot of bridges with all the stuff that you're revealing. It's reality concealing, and frankly, I want no part of it. It's obvious the reason you shook is you have no heart for it. And while you quiver in the corner, condemned by all your silence, and science books corrupted by political alliance that wraps itself inside of faith, the source of its compliance. You can sit there being polite, cause I'm being defiant. I rail against stupidity instead of being all quiet. Keep telling yourself the reason you don't is cause you're enlightened. Cause stupid people say stupid things in a vacuum until somebody comes along and has the nerve to challenge them. I tear down fences with facts, I never straddled them. I learned to never fear what is proven to be exact in the end. And if you can't relate, it's best you never come debate. Go back and read some books on the subject and did extrapolate. The last thing that's needed is lies to be repeated, or the uninformed masses to find it somewhere and read it. Cause emotions get attached and conversations get heated. When people merge with the lies we deep inside, they repeat it. And lies get halfway around the world before the truth gets started. When you combat it, you're attacked by the people that bought it. So those that know me know I give no inch to foolishness. Cause once these fools see that you do, then they start using it. Take it and run with it, and use it as an excuse for never proving it. Allowing it is the same as approving it. There is a method for dissecting claims, so we don't have to be restrained. We're calling out assertions made that sound the same. I'm giving none the benefit of the doubt, and I'll never be so open-minded that my brain will fall out. No evidence within this dogma then. I really have a problem when I see them take a gap in our knowledge and try to fill it in. And by the way, this don't apply to just religion. I dissect all claims with the exact same precision. You two can use the same tools when making your decisions. Try to fool you, you school them and then dismiss them. It's mental self-defense you use when blocking all the damage. Take the time to learn these steps, you'll be ready for the challenge.
All right.
Very nice.
Enjoyed that. That was a great video.
And that's on YouTube with the rest of your...
I have not yet uploaded that on YouTube, and so you guys pretty much premiered it for everybody.
All right.
Yeah. Out here first.
Yeah.
Good. And I guess the new album you have, where can people find it?
They can find that on iTunes, on Amazon, Spotify, Google Play, Bandcamp.
All right, all over the place.
All over the place.
All over the internet, yeah.
All over the internet, right.
And I know some of your older albums are on,
They're also, you can find them all the same way.
And all those other places. So that's the album cover in Tropic Man. So very good. And so is this new album that you have out, is it mostly atheist stuff, or do you mix it up a little bit?
My first album I did was all atheist. Rise of the Infidel. It was all atheist. This one is probably a mixed bag. I have some political stuff on there.
Okay.
Basically, the title in Tropic Man, I was trying to link the album towards the second law of thermodynamics, but I was applying it to society. That everything rusts, everything decays, and everything falls apart.
Right.
And from my observations of what goes on in the United States, it seems that we might be reaching a point of entropy. But the question I asked in the album is, would we know it if it was happening? Did the Roman, at the exact moment when the Roman Empire hit that stride where it was going down, did the people know it?
Did the people know it? No, that's interesting. That's
No, I like the title and
Thank you.
the implications of it.
So which is interesting because you're part of now, you joined Grand Unified, which is a group of artists, as we mentioned, and last week we had Sickness, who's also part of that group.
That's my man.
And what's interesting is that you guys seem to use a lot of physics, Grand Unified Theory being like the unifying, and entropy and the second law of thermodynamics. And things along those lines, and so I just think that's great that you guys are introducing some science and not just rapping about atheism.
Right.
There's another Baba Binksman who does a lot of evolution
raps,
raps and Chaucer, Canterbury also. So much more not just atheism, just science, literacy raps, right?
Baba, we were watching this stuff at our house last night, and of course, he uses lots of charts and graphs.
Oh yeah,
in his rap.
he's educating with his rhyme, and that's what we're about. I mean, one thing about Grand Unified is that we promote a skeptical outlook, critical thinking, and we completely demolish all the superstitious stuff. And we're all about fact checking and not just accepting something because a group of people think that it's true, but can you actually back this up? Can you actually support your claim with any kind of evidence? That's important to us. And we feel like through the art, you can expose that a lot more to people who probably weren't familiar with it. Because in the community I grew up with, trust me, there's not there's not a huge pull or push towards critical thinking.
Right.
They believe a lot of stuff without evidence. And I was the same way. So I know that it's a need for it. And they might not watch a debate with the late Christopher Hitchens and William Lane Craig. They might not know about Sam Harris's book, but they'll recognize the format, the music that I'm doing, and it will open their mind up to different ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal. And as I was telling Sickness, you guys truly believe that, and you express all of this with emotion throughout your music. And as I was telling Sickness, if you can't elicit some kind of emotion that might perhaps open up some people's minds, so you got to feel it yourself and believe it yourself. So I think that's wonderful.
And he lamented somewhat the fact that a lot of hip-hop is anger-driven for lack of any other outlet.
Yes.
It's all that's left to people.
Yep.
And so it is good.
It's
great that this is part of the mix now. This is in the playlist.
And my music is angry. I'll be the first to tell you. I come from the generation, I'm an older hip-hopper. I come from that generation where you did infuse a bit of rage into it. I just chose to focus it in this direction.
Right.
Usually when I'm having these debates or talking about these conversations with other people, other theists, it doesn't get to that point. But in my music, I really let go.
Right. That's interesting, and that's good because that's what elicits that emotion, no matter what that emotion is.
Right.
But to have these alternate ideas and frankly, a little more advanced ideas in the mix.
Yeah, it's important. So. I think it is.
So I know, do you get, now that you've, I guess, gained a little bit of notoriety, a lot of people know you. I guess, Reason Rally was a big stepping stone for you. Yeah. So a lot of people there saw you and probably, now recognize the name Tombstone. But about do you have fans that are maybe not atheists but still like your music? And
yes.
do they say, hey, you're doing too much atheist stuff, mix it up a little bit?
Any indication that the atheist part is working out there, reaching people?
I will say that usually the people that like my stuff that aren't atheists, they don't call themselves atheists, but they have a lot of atheistic leanings. Let's just say that. A lot of the times what I'll get is people who don't outwardly express their atheism will come and say something to me later after hearing the song, like, you made a really good point about this or that. So I think that there's actually a lot more atheists than people realize, or people that are leaning towards that way, having questions. And that's why it's important that we use every single tactic we can to make it okay.
Yeah.
Because that's why you have to support the atheistic artists, because they're putting their livelihood. Because people shut doors once they hear your content, because not maybe that they don't agree with it, but they don't think they can sell it because they think 85% of the United States self-identify as Christian or some other religious affiliation. Who am I going to sell this to? So that's why it's important for the atheists to really support the other authors and the people making music that are willing to put their careers on the line to express a viewpoint that's not popular, or at least right now it's not popular.
Right, and I think it's gaining popularity, obviously, and music is certainly helping. I mean, I know I've listened to Great and Square for, back in the days of the, Rational Response days. I mean, and he often used to, and I guess he still does, and actually a lot of you guys that do in Grand Unified really speak out against like the mainstream hip hop culture and how it, it's just, you're talking about bling and money, and you guys are putting out a much better message, and I think a critical thinking message that needs to be out there and reaching out to the youth.
Absolutely. It's one thing about that, there's room for all that in hip hop. The problem is there's no balance. That's all we get now is a song about your shoes, or a song about the car you're driving, or a song about the alcohol you're drinking, or a song about the girl in the short skirt. That's it. And I have no problem with those type of songs as long as there's balance, but there is no balance anymore. It's just that.
A certain amount of misogyny also.
A lot of it, and it gets to a point where I will say this, it's getting better. Slowly but surely, it's getting better because of the way the industry has changed. You don't necessarily need to be signed anymore to get an audience and get people to listen to you, which frees up artists to pretty much say what's on their mind without some A&R guy telling you, don't say that.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of now the internet, I guess starting with Napster, opened up a whole world of and YouTube, and now, anybody can really self-produce and market themselves, on the internet without, and having the freedom to express,
say what you want,
express without a record label telling you, no, this will not sell, so you can't do that.
No labels, no contracts, anything. Are you entirely self-produced?
I am entirely self-produced. I have producers that will put together the instrumentals for me, but I write everything, I record everything myself, I come up with the ideas myself. There is nobody holding my hand, telling me what I can say, what I can't say. It's just me. Of course, and I get help from my Grand Unified brethren.
Right.
The knowledge that they know, they pass on to me. Anything I know, I pass on to them. That's how that works. So but it's all me. It's all Land of the Dead Entertainment.
Land of the Dead Entertainment, So how many people are in the Grand Unified right now? I mean, is it growing? It's about
I would say there's probably about 50.
Oh, 50. Oh, wow.
But everyone in there isn't out there like that as far as being a musician or something like that. We have a lot of support.
Sure.
People that do other things that are every bit as important as what I do. I couldn't do some of the things that I do if it wasn't for them. Some of our graphic artists and stuff that helps with the imagery and things like that.
Right.
They are very important. They're very important. So
it's the structure of this. You're self-supporting each other, helping each other record.
Absolutely.
Doing the videos. So it's not just musicians. It's as I think Sickness actually had mentioned, it's not just musicians.
Right, we have scientists.
It's everybody, and then you guys all come together.
You guys need to be thinking in terms of a festival.
Well, we have thought about that. When we get our ducks in a row, we will definitely work on that. Right now, what we really want to do is promote our goals and our viewpoints and stuff, and also, you know, getting on a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, multimedia is, I think, important when it comes to spreading this message.
Right.
The message of skepticism and critical thinking. Multimedia is the way to go, because that's how they spread the ignorance through multimedia.
Right. It's yeah, exactly. It's you know, a lot of these it's multimedia. I mean, everything, TV, radio,
That's right.
you know, internet. I mean, that's the way to go.
And the internet, I'm older than you are. And of course, I remember CDs.
Right.
I mean, people would go to the store and buy CDs.
Not anymore.
I think you remember a little bit more than just CDs,
I
right?
do.
Let's be honest.
I'm going to mention LPs. But yeah, an LP, kids today have never played an LP.
Right.
You know, and a lot of them now barely remember
played it.
CDs. You know? Yeah. And now it's all downloadable.
Yep.
And I assume everything you've got, your entire catalog
It is downloadable. They can find it somewhere.
But you also you still sell CDs.
Yeah,
right?
with Entropic, man, I haven't got the manufacturing back from the CDs yet, but yeah, I sell CDs because CDs are still good. When you do a live show or something like that,
just something to have. Yeah.
Something to have. You just sign it for them. They love it. They love it.
I you know, I do that too. I mean, I'm a big metalhead.
Nice.
But I also listen to a lot of, you know, hip hop. I used to listen to a lot of, you know, old Tribe Called Quest, you know, Native Tongue type of stuff. You know, loved Erykah Badu, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I grew up kind of listening to a lot of different things. And you know, I was growing up during the age of the CDs, you know, and so everything was CD. Actually, I grew up during the transition from cassettes to CDs. But now that, you know, everything's downloadable, you can get it. You know, you can just go to iTunes or whatever and download. Yep. Every once in a while, though, if it's a band or an artist I really like, I will still buy the CD.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because there's something to actually having something tangible.
And not a bunch of ones and zeros, right? You have something physical in your hand.
Yeah. But it's all available all the time now.
Yeah.
I've gone on like Spotify and found some oldies, and I mean oldies, mono recorded stuff.
Wow.
Old stuff, and it's just amazing that on these outlets like Spotify, any song you can think of, punch it up, and it starts playing in 1 second.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's taken for granted now, but for some of us, that's still really cool.
Deal. It's a big deal.
Well,
cool.
Science.
Yeah.
Science.
Exactly. Science. That's what did it. And you know, in hip hop, you know, the old school days is you'd have a DJ spinning records while people. Now, what do you mean spinning records? Now you have a laptop,
basically,
and you have some control boards to do some things. You know,
absolutely.
There's no more spinning of anything.
Right. Although I wouldn't mind bringing it back to that.
Yeah.
They are great for live performances. Having the DJ is great. Yeah.
I mean, I like I don't know, your Dilated Peoples.
Yes.
You know, they do a lot of old school scratching and things like that. I think that's great. Yeah. You know, which is lacking in, I think, in mainstream hip hop.
It is.
You know,
it doesn't feel like hip hop to me anymore. There's certain elements that once you take it out of it, it's just pop music.
Yeah.
It's not really hip hop. A lot of it.
Yeah. Well, I call it crap music.
That's a great technical term.
Well, it's it's wannabe rap, I guess, but no, that's interesting. So you write your own beats and
sometimes I did the entire Rise of the Infidel. I produced everything but one song.
Oh, okay.
After that, it just became easier to get people that were a lot more talented and skilled than me to do it for me. I can concentrate on writing the songs and recording.
So do you play live often around?
I've performed. My last performance was in Seattle in August.
Oh, okay.
In Redmond, Washington, as a matter of fact, just outside Seattle. We had a grand unified event.
Oh, wow.
Went off pretty good. It was the first one that we ever tried to do ourselves without it being attached to a convention or something. And it came off pretty good, you know, so we're going to probably try to do more of those in the future. Before that, earlier this year, I performed at the American Atheist convention and had a great time.
What a great place that was.
Yes,
that hotel right on the river is beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was actually
and
good.
I got to admit, I barely spent any time in watching the speakers and everything.
Right.
Just hanging out on that patio right there by the river was just too awesome. And
it was so nice.
Meeting more people out there than I would have met.
Had you been there? Exactly.
Besides the people talking in there, I agree with them. Whatever they're talking about, I'm on board. I read the book.
Right. I agree.
You know, one of the things, speaking of these conventions, historically, I think, Well, historically, in the olden days, the conventions used to be very non-diverse.
Yes.
Older, white kind of men used to be, but now I think we're seeing a lot more diversity. In many ways, younger people are starting to get more involved now.
More women.
More diversity in races. And I think that's great that now, you're introducing hip hop to people that may not ever even don't like that style, but start to
see the value in it.
The value, exactly.
Because a lot of times they go off of, and you can't blame them if that's what's been mass produced.
Right.
The stereotype of what hip hop is.
Exactly.
But hip hop being so lyrically oriented is a great format to spread a message. Yeah. It's great.
So then people start to see the value of that, and maybe start to get into a little bit more into hip hop, and I think that's also important.
Absolutely.
I'm a late comer to it, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff I like.
That's good. That's I get a lot of that from a lot of people.
And I do appreciate, I don't know, I hate to simply say the beat of it, but it is pretty driving. And, and there's just that built-in feel. It is emotional.
It's emotional.
And a lot of message. I think country and western delivers a message.
Country, it does.
Is all message.
Have you ever thought about doing a collaboration with some metal artists?
I'm going to tell you what, if there's any metal artists out there that can help me fuse it in so that I'm coming halfway with the hip hop, they're coming halfway with the metal, I'm with it.
All right, maybe we can make that happen.
All right.
You know what, we're about out of time.
We're almost out of time. I just want to thank you for being on the show. I know
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank Mätthew Chapman again. I want to thank the Tombstone, the Dead Man. Check him out. And next week, join us. I think we have Brother Richard Haynes going to be a guest here. So.
And I don't think either of us will be here
we're going to
next
have
week.
different hosts next week, which that's what we like. That's why we need more people here to help us out with the show, to come and host and rotate out. We get tired, believe it or not, of doing this every Sunday in a row.
Look for us on Facebook. Check out Dead Man on YouTube, and read your Bible.